In this video, we will begin our conversation about basics of geometry. Specifically, we will talk about what we may call betweenness and what we cannot consider as betweenness. We also will establish the way to communicate our thought process in writing using proper symbols. To start, I would ask you to imagine a segment AK with a length of 5 units and segment KD with a length of 10 units. Maybe what you have in your mind looks exactly like a picture in front of you. Well, it appears to the unprepared mind and the eye that point K lies somewhere between points A and D. That means that it should be helping us to find the distance between points A and D. So right now I will ask you to tell me, how long is AD? I might disappoint those of you who thought that the distance between these 2 points was 15, because it's not. And there is a very simple way to show why not. Let's use our hands. Pretend that segment AK is your left hand and segment KD is your right hand. That means that they will meet up at point K. It's like a little house that you've made with your hands right now. What I want you to do next is let your left hand, my segment AK, simply drop, just like that. And let the same happen to your right hand, my segment KD. It's easy to see now that your hands, or my segments, overlapped, which meant that the distance between A and D was less than the length of these 2 segments combined. I will reiterate this point by stacking these 2 segments next to each other. Well, what appears to be as a point in between 2 cannot be called as such in geometry. And that will make a difference between the diagram we just worked with and the one that just appeared to you. On the new picture, I have points A, K, and D conveniently located on one segment. In geometry, we call such points collinear. In fact, point K, as we say in geometry, is not only collinear with A and D, but lies between them. When this happens, it's easy to observe the difference between the situation that cannot be called betweenness and the situation that is called officially betweenness in geometry. Let's work with this diagram on the right. Apparently, point K, who is collinear with A and D and lies between them, breaks this segment into 2 parts. I will mark part AK in red and part KD in blue, so it's easier for us to talk about them. Both of them make the whole segment AD. This situation is characterized as segment partition because it simply shows that the entire segment is made of its parts created by collinear points. Point K might be given on the segment or might be formed by a line or a subset of a line simply cutting through that segment, just like this gray line does on my diagram. Now, nobody said anything special about these 2 blue and red parts, so I can't really mark them as congruent. We have to be specific in geometry, and so since such condition wasn't given, we have to mark our parts as non-congruent. And you see that I did that with 1 and 2 congruence marks. I can now work with my segment. I can find its length. That length might not always be given as a single number. It might be in disguise, like in this situation. So the segment on the left is 4a plus 5, and you see that I'm using color to help me identify it. And the segment on the right, 6a plus 3, represents KD and is in blue. If I follow this simple formula that basically shows the common sense behind this diagram, then I will be able to find the value of A, and when I plug it into the expression that represents each of the parts, I will be able to find their lengths. You notice that as I was talking, I also marked this segment, the entire whole segment, with a given value. This way, we can write this expression not just in words, but in symbols of geometry, denoting part 1 as AK and part 2 as 6A plus 3 named KD. Both of them together add up to AD. Anytime in geometry, as you first start to wonder from the very given what it is that's in front of you and identify the situation, you have to mark the information on the diagram because that explains why you choose a corresponding rule. That rule should really be written in words so that you don't make mistake as you do the substitution, identifying every one of these parts with a specific geometric name. Only after all this work is prepared, it is safe to substitute algebraic notation into your equation. Once you solve this equation to find A, once again, you can plug in that value to identify the length of segment AK and KD.